Is there actually an automatic win on Miami's schedule anymore? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the Canes and the Eagles as Boston College wins at home over Miami 27-14. It's the first time that these two schools have met since 2012. We talked about it the entire offseason that this might be a trap game for Miami, but as it turned out, because of the disappointing play and the loss to Virginia in its last outing, that Miami squarely knew that Boston College was going to be a difficult opponent. They were only a field goal favorite on the road, so it wasn't necessarily a trap game, a game that would sneak up on Miami. It wasn't that Miami was so high and mighty that BC would sneak up on them and should not have been on their radar. But Boston College was just that good tonight, that precision, that tenacious on defense, that well-schooled on defense, and Miami that inept in moving the football, that void of big plays to really threaten Boston College. Yes, it was a game. It was competitive until about 5 minutes left. We still didn't have an outcome necessarily until Miami was stopped on the last meaningful drive of the game. There was still a feeling that the game was somewhat in doubt, but Boston College never trailed in the game. They led 7-0. It was tied at 7-7. Once they took the lead, it's 14-7. They were never headed off at the pass past that. And Miami loses to go to 5-3. And now they've got two losses in the ACC. Boston College has a difficult stretch drive, as was outlined on the broadcast, at 6-2. But they remain with just one loss in the ACC. And for as difficult as the stretch drive is for Boston College, with the likes of Clemson, Florida State, Virginia Tech in particular, at least they've got their path paved in front of them to challenge the big boys in the ACC Atlantic. And if Boston College takes care of business, they still have an opportunity to win the division. For as unlikely as that seems, and probably is against Clemson, they can do it. They have Clemson to play. They've only lost one game in the conference. They're 3-1 in the ACC. So if they beat Clemson head-to-head, they can win the ACC. For Miami, it's not that cut and dry. They now need help. They've lost a second game in the division, and lo and behold, who's leading the division but Virginia Tech and Virginia. So for the Hokies, well, Miami has them on November, I believe, 17th, the second to last game of the season. So Miami can take care of the Hokies, but they can do nothing about Virginia. And it seems far-fetched, but Virginia holds the division in its hands right now. They would have to win out, but they control their own destiny with only one loss and having defeated Miami head-to-head, having the game still yet to play against Virginia Tech, the last game of the season. Virginia's in great shape to make an improbable run, to be kind, an improbable run to the ACC Coastal Division Championship. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down Miami and Boston College as BC wins it. BC wins it 27-14 as a 3.5-point favorite, or a 3.5-point underdog if you're looking at the BC perspective. Fortunately for myself, in regards to my predictions, and also possibly benefiting otherwise from tonight's game, BC not only covered the spread in taking care of the 3.5 points, but also winning the game outright, and that pays off rather well. BC 27-14. Let's talk Miami football and BC, whomever you root for, and obviously you guys know what the deal is. It's easy to determine. I've got more Miami interest on this channel than BC, so we'll focus on Miami, but I would like to focus on Boston College as well. They're the 6-2 team. They're the team with only one loss in the ACC. They're the team that control its own destiny with a game against Clemson and Florida State in the coming weeks. The two teams that would challenge them, most notably Clemson, in the Atlantic Division. I will check out the live chat, see what you guys have for me, but I'll give you my analysis as I did at halftime. So if you have yet to see the halftime analysis, we set up shop at a halftime, and I really broke down the first half, and we had the chat room going for the entirety of the second half as well. And here we are with Miami losing and BC now 6-2. All right. Before I go to the live chat, It stands out like a sore thumb on the box score when you consider the start that Malik Rozier had in this game, hitting on 7 of 8 passes out of the gate. They were safe throws, but he was at least precision, and he was throwing the ball where he needed to the playmakers to at least move the football. No explosive plays. Did they ever get an explosive game on this play on this night? Well, technically they had 2. So we mentioned at halftime that with all the speed and athleticism that Miami possesses, and the clear talent and athletic advantage they have over Boston College, that BC was the team with 5 plays over 20 yards and Miami had none at the half. They did come up with 2 in the rushing game. Malik Rozier had a rush for 21 yards, and Jahir Jones had a 27-yard gain. And in the passing game, the longest gain for Miami on this night was Travis Homer for 18 yards. And we know that that throw wasn't made down the field to Travis Homer. So it was an underneath throw that Travis Homer took for 18 yards. There was also a play to Lawrence Cager for 17 yards. That was, or I'm sorry, Daryl Langham for 17 yards. So that was Miami's inability to stretch the field. Jeff Thomas, they missed him a number of times. We talked about it on the last drive of the half for Miami when they drove the ball out to midfield based on Malik Rozier's legs, converting a couple third downs and really breaking in the free when he when the containment was not there. They got the ball to the 40-yard line of Boston College, and then he just threw an awful pass to Jeff Thomas when he was streaking behind the defense for a touchdown, and he missed him and he underthrew him by forever. And that set up a woeful second half for Malik Rozier. So he starts 7 for 8. He finishes 18 for 35. So he hit 11 of his last 27 throws for a measly 149 yards, 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown. We expected, based on the words of Mark Richt this week, that N'Kosi Perry would play in this game, and he did not. Anthony Brown on the other side didn't have to do too much for Boston College. He made the throws that he had to, really only made a couple mistakes in the game. He missed a wide open Tommy Sweeney in the end zone and underthrew the slant when he had the wide open tight end in the back of the end zone. That led to a BC field goal in the first half. The interception was not necessarily a horrible throw, but he threw it into traffic when he thought the defensive backs were not looking. But Finley was looking and intercepted the pass right there. Miami at that point had a chance to get back in the game, but Anthony Brown finished 15 of 28 for 152 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception. And of course, A.J. Dillon, the numbers are really solid, really good, but you had to watch the game to see him at work. Coming off the left ankle sprain, 32 carries for 149 yards. That's 4.7 per pop and a touchdown. On the other side, Malik Rozier had some good rushing games. He had a better rushing game, definitely, than a passing game. 72 yards rushing on 14 carries. Travis Homer, 13 for 40. So again, from the running back position, Miami could not move the ball. Let's check out what you guys have in the live chat. The defense, I don't know how to grade the Miami defense, because when the game mattered, when it was in doubt, which again, it was in doubt the entire game until about 4 or 5 minutes left when Miami was stopped for the last time, down 2 scores. But basically, Boston College took control fairly early in this game by a score to 2 scores. And Miami did not play well on defense for the first 3 drives of the game. The first 3 drives of the game set the tone, gave BC a cushion, and let their defense dictate the rest of the flow of the game. And Miami let BC drive the length of the field, 3 consecutive drives. It could have been 21-7. They should have scored 3 touchdowns. But again, Brown missed Sweeney in the end zone. Otherwise, they did kick the field goal, but they scored 3 consecutive drives out of the gate to start the game. So Miami's defense statistically played pretty well, and they only gave up 27 points. And most of that was aided by the defense, or at least the last score or 2 was aided by the defense of Boston College, or the 2 big plays, the big turnovers in the second half. The one, Malik Rozier's fault on the underthrow on the slant to Jeff Thomas, intercepted by Torres. And then the other play where Hamp Cheevers picked off the batted volleyball type play when Malik Rozier was just sandwiched by Max Richardson and Zach Allen, who wreaked havoc all night. Zach Allen's quite a player. Quite a player, fourth in the league in tackles for loss. And he and Max Richardson just sandwiched Malik Rocher. And that led to the interception that really turned the game and gave BC some breathing room in the second half. All right. What do you guys think of Miami football? I've got to think at this point that you guys aren't too happy with Mark Richt as a play caller or maybe even as a head coach at this point. George, start us out. Oh my God, what was that? Go Gators beat Georgia. Panther Pro 22. Hewitt, Trussville versus Thompson. Been a great game. All right. People checking in on the Alabama high school game that was on ESPN2 with apparently 2 Alabama quarterbacking prospects in the game. George, I don't even want to talk about Miami. I've got to go on the bright side of Miami's getting a new coach. I guarantee it. Apex Circuit 78, we appreciate all of you jumping on the live stream. We appreciate it. We appreciate the support. We appreciate the chat room. You guys keep it going. You guys keep it fresh. You guys keep up the talk and let me know what's on your mind. Of course, the phone lines are open. I may have to go track down my phone. I misplaced it, but it's around here somewhere. As soon as it goes off, I should be able to find it. I didn't bring it to the set with me. 860-325-3687. That's 860-325-3687. I'll put that in the chat. I saw one of the last comments in the chat was that Miami won't win another game. I wasn't necessarily thinking that Miami won't win another game, but I was thinking certainly we assumed, most of us assumed preseason, well, Miami's got about 3 games to play this year. They've got to play LSU. They've got to play Florida State. They've got to play Virginia Tech on the road. And maybe BC is going to be an issue. Maybe Duke, probably not. Probably just BC could be an issue on the road on a Friday night, late October. But in terms of talent, there's really only 3 teams that could play that. Really just the 2, LSU and Florida State, and then Virginia Tech's going to be difficult as an in-division game that they typically are a difficult foe, especially in Lane Stadium on the road. And we whittled Miami's schedule down to 9 games, maybe 8 games. And that's not the case. They've lost to Boston College. They've lost to Virginia. They've lost to Virginia. They have not beaten any good teams. Who have they beaten? They've beaten North Carolina. That might be their best win. Might be. Toledo or North Carolina is their best win. They've lost 2 games in the ACC. They've won the 2 games in the ACC. They beat North Carolina and they beat Florida State. Okay. So Florida State's probably the best win on the resume, and they came awfully close to not winning that game. So Miami is not a gimme to beat anyone. They could lose any of these games. I don't expect them to lose the rest of them, but I would not be surprised if they went, let's see, they're 5-3. They've got 4 games left, 2-2. 2-2 the rest of the way for the Canes. I would not be surprised. The call's coming in. Oh, there's the phone. It's in my pocket. Here we go. Whoever just tried to call the show, please call again. Sorry about that. That was a quick trigger on the phone call. 860-325-3687. I'm ready for it now. All right. There we go. Appreciate that. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Let's see who's on the line.
What's up, Mark? This is Big Poppy.
Big Poppy, how are you?
Well, it's not. Well, I was okay before the game started, and then, well, of course, I saw Malik came out, and I had high hopes for Malik. And, well,
why? Why did you have high hopes? Why was he going to be any different tonight than he typically is?
I mean, I just thought that, you know, maybe he would understand the circumstances that he's in, and maybe I just had a dream that he would come out and he would play like fire. And then I mean, the offense was so terrible. I fell asleep in the third quarter and woke up and didn't miss a beat in the fourth quarter. The score was still the same. Mark Richt needs to start calling the plays at the beginning of the game. I mean, you can't really, as a Miami fan, you can't really be angry and rant about anything because you're all out of topics to rant about. Everything we saw this game is what we've been seeing all season and since last year. Mark Richt starts the game out with run, get stopped, run, and what is he doing third down? Play action. It's nothing new. I just don't know what's wrong with Mark Richt. Does he need some kind of medication? Is he seeing the same thing that we're seeing on the field? And the interception that Malik threw on the slant pass isn't his fault. I don't know if you know this, but Mark Richt tells the quarterbacks where to throw the ball. He literally tells them where to throw the ball, who the ball's supposed to go to. So I guess you told Malik that the slant is supposed to go to Jeff Thomas no matter what. And that was also a reason why he's not going with Nkosi audible. Mark Richt doesn't like his quarterback audible in for some apparent reason. I don't know, but I feel at this point, he should let his son call the plays. John Richt, who is his son, he's the quarterback coach. He might as well let his son call the plays for the rest of the season because I don't think his son can do any better. And his son doesn't really do anything anyway because a lot of people say that his son isn't really a good quarterback coach. So, I mean, he's basically just his son is basically just taking the spot of what should be an offensive coordinator there. So, I mean, I don't know what to say. Malik, I mean, I try to be optimistic. I knew he was probably going to stink the joint up. But what I thought was he was going to stink it up in the first half, and then Nkosi Perry comes in the second half and saves it. We didn't see neither of that. Miami fans told me that don't count on Nkosi Perry getting in because Mark Richt doesn't hold true to his word. Mark Richt literally begged Nkosi Perry to come to Miami. Begged Nkosi. Now he's at Miami, redshirted him. Now you benched him for Malik trash year because that's basically what he looked like. In the first half, I didn't really think he was that bad. But in the second half, I fell asleep. And then I'm just watching you read off the stats. I'm like, wow. Tragic. I mean, but it's nothing new it's nothing new that we haven't seen all year. We played since we went 10-0 our last 10 games. I believe we were 2-8 against Power 5 opponents. That's not good. AJ Dillon did what we knew he was to held him in check. He probably should have had more yards, but really it was due to the offense's lack of production, and plus the special team was just awful. I forgot the name of our punter, but I know our punter is the son of a former Miami Hurricane alumni. His dad, Zach Beagles, I think his name is. His dad was an NFL punter for about 10 years. So if your dad was playing in the NFL for 10 years as a punter, and he was a pretty solid one, I expect you to be able to punt the ball. You can't do that. The field position battle, we just weren't able to win, but our defense held up, but eventually our defense wasn't able to keep coming back on the field or come back on the field after 3 and outs, 1 first down drives, and then it's nothing new that we can say that we haven't been seeing all year. The only thing I can say now is that we have officially wasted probably what was the best Miami Hurricane defense we have had since 2002, 03, 04, around that range. We're probably only going to get about 2-3 players back on the defense next year. Our whole secondary is gone. Red Wine, Jaquan Johnson gone. A lot of American core is probably going to be going to the draft. I mean, it's just disappointing to see all this talent, all the preseason hype that we had for this wide receiving core, and we can't even get these guys the ball. It's just disappointing. I'm just disappointed as a Miami Hurricane fan because I've been a Miami Hurricane fan since I was 8. I'm 16 years now. I'm 16 years old. 16 years. I can't talk. I'm 16 now, so 8 years I've been looking for something different, and I haven't seen it. Mark Richt is starting to look worse than what Al Golden is and for you to be considered worse than Al Golden, that's an insult. That's an insult. That's a very, very big insult. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with Mark Richt. I mean, if I was Mark Richt or if I was the Miami Hurricanes athletic department, I would ask Mark Richt, would he rather have in the office position, or would he rather just be forced to retire? Because I can't see this man being coach any longer because he just doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. He's calling the same plays over and over again. Like, dude, the run play didn't work the first time. It didn't work the second time. So I run it the third time. I don't know, Mark. Maybe you can clarify, but I just don't know anything new to say that we haven't saw all season. And also, N'Kosi Perry isn't even our quarterback of the future. I have a strong hypothesis that Jaron Williams will be our quarterback next year because Mark Richt raved about him. He says he has the best pocket presence. He is the best passer, all this stuff. So I think Jaron Williams is going to be the starting quarterback of who we play. I think we played Florida for our first game of the season. So Jaron Williams is probably going to be our starting quarterback because Mark Richt raved about him. So everybody loves N'Kosi. N'Kosi is a fan favorite. I don't know why N'Kosi feels like Miami Hurricane fans are coming at him because we don't. We actually go on his Instagram post to say how he should have gotten in and how he should be starting. But I don't know. It's just another disappointing season.
Okay, Big Poppy. There's a whole lot to counter with there. I could go for the next 45 minutes because you make some good points. Some other things I would have a few questions about, but we've got a line of callers trying to get in. So I appreciate the call, Big Poppy. We will address Mark Richt, the quarterback situation, the defense, the playmakers on offense. We will do that very soon. So thanks so much, Big Poppy. All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who do we have on the line?
This is Carl. This is a Canes fan in distress.
Canes fan in distress. Yeah.
Canes fan in distress. I'm a Canes fan in distress. Mark Richt, as a head coach, he can stay. As an offensive coordinator, he got to go. I'm an alum, and when you donate, you don't donate to see this type of offense. And I'm pretty sure other boosters see the same thing. You know, and knowing Miami fans, you know, we're known for being fickle, but man, I could just imagine the next home game. It's going to be terrible. You know, I'll still go because I want to support the players, but this offense, it's a travesty. We scored, 27 points in the last 2 games? Come on now. I mean, BC, they're a respectable team, but they're not a Miami caliber opponent to be beating us. And tonight we got outclassed. I mean, they outrushed us. I mean, they had more motion in the offense than we've seen in the past, 2 years?
Good point.
Disgusting. So the OC, I mean, Mark Richt as the OC has to go. Also, our offensive line coach, he needs to go too because I see no development. I mean, right now we're supposed to be in the recruiting hub for this 5-star named Evan Neal. I see no way he comes to Miami. If his parents are smart and he's smart and he's really trying to make a business decision and he's really, looking forward to the NFL and anticipating his future, his future in his best interest, I see no way he comes to Miami with Stacey Sterling there. And the QB coach, John Rick, I mean, he benefits from nepotism. He has no resume to be the QB coach. He's arguably the most important coach on staff, and he has no true experience. I mean, he didn't play any big-time college football. He didn't play in the league. I mean, I see no reason why he's our QB coach other than he's the coach's son. So, I mean, I'm hurting right now. I mean, the defense let up 27 points, but I don't blame them because they've been stout all year. So, for them to slip up one game, okay. But, I mean, this is terrible. It's an atrocity. I'm flabbergasted. I'm everything. I mean, you can throw out every big word. I'm pissed. Everything.
You know, the one thing I noticed, though, when you talk about the offense is that having a creative and imaginative offense doesn't mean you have to throw the ball 50 times. BC was very creative, especially those first 3 series were very well schemed and planned with not just the gadget plays, but with all the motion, the rollout of the quarterback play. They were just executing flawlessly, and it was a lot of imagination with multiple tight ends, a lot of different things that they were doing to get various players. They had tight ends catching the ball on the first 2 or 3 drives of that game when they really moved the ball down the field from tight ends who only had 3 and 4 catches this year. So they spread the ball all over the place, and they did a lot of imaginative things, and they weren't going crazy, throwing the ball all over the field. They just were very unpredictable in a good way.
Exactly. They gave our defense, which, you know, at times our defense could be undisciplined because we're so aggressive. They gave our defense a lot of eye candy. So a lot of motioning, you know, a receiver will go from one side of the field to the next side, you know, and their splits also played a factor because he would go from the outside half to the inside half, causing our linebacker to shift. And knowing how Manny Diaz wants us to play defense, the minute you do that and then you get an athlete out of space, we're already out leveraged just on pure spacing. Now with the tight ends, yeah, they caught a lot of balls, but I mean, no disrespect to any BC fans, listen, they're so unathletic. It's like I was like, all right, let them get the 4 yards, but it's just also they were dragging us. I mean, from the running backs to the tight ends, you know, we weren't stopping them right there at the point of attack. Once you got the tackle, there always had to be 4 or 5 people bringing them down. And maybe in part due to it always being a safety, being there as our valve. But I mean, we hurt tonight. We hurt. But I think this is what we needed, because if Mark Richt doesn't stop playing Malik Rozier and he keeps playing him, then I mean, I might be calling you back real soon talking about Mark Richt, the head coach, needs to go also. So, I mean, this hurts, but we needed it. We needed this loss. Show us who we really are. Because last year, the commentator even brought up, was the 10-0 start in Mirage? I think it might have been better if we would have just lost to Georgia Tech and Syracuse. Because, I mean, I was drinking the Kool-Aid, and I was still drinking it to start the year. And now I'm seeing how this Canes team is. I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted. With the level of athletes that we recruit, we should be able to score 28 points on anybody, including Alabama, because we have similar level athletes. And we can't even do that. We can't do that against Boston. And Virginia. Oh my God. I'm about to regurgitate my dinner.
I hear you. I think your feelings are shared by the masses, by tons of people that watch me and tons more beyond that.
I'm at a loss for words. I mean, I'll go ahead and let you go because I know the other people calling, but I'm a Kane fan in distress. Kane family, you know, we'll hit the bottom, but we'll get better. You know, I kept telling myself, at least we beat FSU this season, so at least hold on to that. In 2019, we're going to go ahead and beat, we got some Gator bait on the line, so we're going to go ahead and beat them Gators too. Because I'm not, in 2018, I mean, I don't see much left to play for. So 2019, week 1, we're going to get them Gators.
Okay. Kane fan in distress. So we appreciate the call, man. You have a good one.
All right. You too.
All right. The line's back open at 860-325-3687. A couple of people were calling and then hung up. 860-325-3687. Boston College defeats Miami tonight, 27-14. Here we go. You guys make the show on these nights. I don't have to do any analysis. I just let you guys go. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Victor, Mark.
Who is this? I'm sorry. You're a bit muffled.
This is Victor.
Victor, we appreciate you calling.
Just a quick reminder for everybody, hit the like button. We're all one community here.
Thank you so much.
Real quick.
Yep.
I think Miami lost this game because they have a lack of linebacker play. You know, Shaq Quarterman is supposed to be, some all-American linebacker. He's too slow. He can't hit the holes. Our linebacking squad is supposed to be top-notch. I haven't seen any evidence of that. These guys are experienced. And then one last point that is not Miami-oriented. Maybe tomorrow, can you start a topic about how Alabama could literally take this next game with LSU off and let LSU win, so then they go to the SEC championship and have to put up with whoever they got to fight for that? Because I highly doubt the climate of college football right now that they would leave Alabama out. And I think we saw this last season. And I think there's an incentive now where you use the blueprint of Alabama of playing Mercer's or Louisiana Lafayette, and then you don't even have to be the SEC champ. And as long as you have the eye test on your side, you're in. And I find that to be unjust. But I'm a big fan. I'm going to hang up and let other phone calls come through. Love your channel.
Thanks, Victor. I appreciate it. So Victor brings up a subject that we've talked about a number of times that people have brought up, and I brought up as well in talking about different scenarios, is that would be the one way for the SEC to still get two teams into the college football playoff, for LSU to win out, beat Bama, for Bama to sit home, bypass the SEC championship game, and did what they did last year, and that still make the college football playoff. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Yo, what up, Mark? This is Carlos Wilkerson.
Hello, Carlos. How are you? First-time caller, right?
Right. What about you?
I'm doing just fine.
Thanks for finishing.
Miami fan?
Man, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's very tough right now, man. It's tough. Man, like we had 2 weeks to prepare, and like literally see the same exact thing. Like it's at this point, like I think somebody has to sit Mark Richt down, and trying to strip his power away or something. Because this has to stop. It has to stop.
So when these problems started against LSU, and even going back to the stretch drive last year with the 3 straight losses, it seemed like most of the Miami fan base was good with Mark Richt being the head coach, but get him the hell away from play calling was kind of the message that I heard most of the time. Now there's even a bit of wavering concerning whether he's the right guy to lead the program.
I mean, it's basically like 2 options. I mean, like Mark Richt is a great guy and all. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it would be great for him to accept a CEO type of position, and hire an offensive guy to run it the way he got Manny Diaz doing the defense. It's 2 options. It's like, hey, you gotta be a CEO, or you gotta go. Like, you have to go. Like, I mean, it sucks. As far as firing coaches or whatnot, but at some point, like, you've had enough. And clearly, like, as Miami fans, like, we've had enough. Like, you got to either, like, you have to give up the offense completely, or you have to go. Like, there's nothing else to talk about at this point. There's nothing else to talk about.
Yeah, I think there's a reason. So most of these head coaches, well, pretty much all of them, made it up through the ranks as positional coaches and then coordinators and then head coaches. So they know what they're doing when they're able to focus on that particular position or that particular unit. But there's a reason once they become head coaches that they no longer focus on that particular unit. It's because it's just too much to deal with. And Mark Richt was successful doing that when that was all he focused on, number one. Number two is when he was doing it 15 years ago. And there was just a completely different approach to offensive football in college at that point.
Yeah, his offensive play calling looked 15 years ago. Like, it really looks like 2003. I'm sure it's no more than like 10 head coaches, I guess, like, who actually call plays. And most of them are like, I guess you would say, gurus, you know, like the Dana Holgerson, Mike Gundy, and you know, you can even go to Georgia Tech with Paul Johnson. I mean, so if you want to say about that offense, but like, he knows it. You know what I'm saying, like the back of his hand or whatnot, you know. But like, I think it's too much for Mark Richt. I think it's too much. And on top of that, his son, John Richt, like, what qualifies this guy to be a quarterback coach at a Power 5 school like the University of Miami? Like, what, besides your last name being Richt, what makes you qualified to be a quarterback coach?
Yeah, me personally, I wouldn't want to go in that direction, even if I fully believed that my son was capable and qualified of carrying that through. I just wouldn't want that to be an item that people could point to. And I would want to support my son and send him somewhere else and let him achieve somewhere else, go to another league, go to another team across the country, somewhere else, just where he could work on his own career. I would support him, help him, give him all the guidance and instruction possible. And certainly maybe if he's about 3 jobs in and he's proven himself, come on back. You have accomplished so much. You've led offenses and coach quarterbacks that have led leagues in passing, and you've got all these credentials that I can point to say he's definitely qualified. But up until then, I need you to do that on your own somewhere else. I totally agree with that, both from just the logical standpoint that he hasn't achieved and hasn't succeeded to the level that you would expect a coach on the Miami staff to be qualified, number one, and number two, just why have that be a question?
Exactly. You make a great point with that. I mean, like, that's something that you do in like Little League or maybe even high school. Like, hey, my son is coming up the ranks. You know, let's give him a shot and see what he got. You can't do that at the University of Miami. Like, you literally have zero experience at being a quarterback coach or developing quarterbacks. Zero. Like, Miami isn't the place to where you can bring your son along with some on the job training per se. Like, this isn't the place for that. This isn't the place. And on top of that, oh my gosh, Stacey Sarah, this offensive line might be the worst position unit on our team. It is so bad. Like, it's so bad. And on top of that, Mark Richt has to know that it's bad. So why run these same formations, same running back motions, same what we call them, draws or whatever you want to call them, right into the back of the offensive guard, right into the back of the offensive tackle. If you know your offensive line is terrible, why not help them out? You see what Boston College was doing. Like, could you imagine if we was running with the imagination and the creativity and the misdirection and motion that Boston College was doing? Like, that helps your offensive line. Why let guys tee off on your terrible offensive line? You can't really blame them. You're letting guys tee off on your bad offensive line. They know what's coming. Like that second wildcat with DJ Dallas. Like, before that snap, I said, please don't run into the short side of the field, because they're lined up over there and they know you're running that side of the field. And what did you do? Run the ball to the short side of the field where the defense knows he's running to. His offense is so predictable, it's like laughable at this point. Like, we literally, as Miami fans, can call out what play we're running before the play is snapped. Like, we know what play you're running. So I'm sure a defensive coordinator from a major university knows what plays you're running. Like, I mean, like the whole offensive system and philosophy, it's so hard to watch, Mark. It's so hard to watch.
I hear you. I will make one, not necessarily a defense for Mark Richt and the coaching staff, but I will make one disclaimer that's a very obvious one. When your two worst positions on offense are the entire unit of the offensive line and the quarterback, those are the two units I would want to have in play to be the best. You can have average running backs and average wide receivers. If you've got a dominant offensive line and a really good quarterback, then those are the two units you want to have more so than the other two. It's great to have dynamic wide receivers and running backs. Certainly, don't get me wrong, because they can be game changers, but you do have a bad quarter. You have what do we say about Malik Rocher? If we rated the 130 quarterbacks or the 68 in the Power 5, I'm guessing he's about a top 50 player at his position, something like that. He's not good.
You said the entire the Power 5? You said it?
Well, we've got 68 teams in the Power 5. I'm going to say he's in the top. He's around 40. I guess if I look through.
Man, yeah, I think he might be about 50, 55. Mark. I'm not even.
You might be right.
That guy can't hit like Cam said to you. That guy can't hit the broad out of a barn. You got guys that is running. I mean, like simple slant, simple out route, simple bubble screen. And he's throwing it behind guys. Guys got to reach back, reach up. Like, I don't understand how Mark Reed can see that time and time again and say, hey, this is my guy. This is he's rolling with. Clearly, he doesn't like the Coachy Perry. Clearly, he doesn't like Coachy Perry. For whatever reason, I guess he has bad practice habits. I guess he's not much of a leader. But Malik has shown you time and time again how bad he is as a quarterback. There's nothing that you can watch on film and say, hey, this guy is my quarterback. There's nothing that you can watch on film and say that. So how we as Miami fans can, be positive about going forward if you as a Miami coach can't, make the adjustment or make the right call as far as who's your quarterback, what plays, what scheme you're calling. Like, he looks so lost out there. Like, it's almost like he's doing it on purpose. And I know that's not the case. But it almost looks like he's trying to be bad on purpose. It's that bad. It's that bad, Mark.
Baby Shack 569 on the live chat says that Rocher is the second worst quarterback in the ACC. So if we really thought about it, then that's a good little exercise right there. If you go through the Atlantic Division, obviously Trevor Lawrence is better, DeAndre Francois is better, Ryan Finley's better, Eric Dungy's better, Anthony Brown, who we saw tonight, has really improved as a quarterback. He is so much better than he was last year. He's better. The Wake Forest quarterback, they had to switch out quarterbacks this year. The kid that they had last year, John Wolford, was a really good quarterback, but I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head. He's a true freshman, so we'll give him a break because he's a true freshman. Before that, they put Kendall Hinton back in the lineup for Wake Forest, and I'm missing one other team maybe in that division. No, I think I got them all. We got Virginia with Bryce Perkins. He's a running quarterback. As a thrower, he's pretty bad, but we'll see how he develops. North Carolina, yeah, Georgia Tech, obviously you kind of take them out of the mix because they don't throw with Taquan Marshall, and they had the kid running the offense last night that they scored a zillion points on Virginia Tech and threw for 0 yards, but they're kind of a different animal. And obviously Willis, the Virginia Tech quarterback, he's better. The Pitt quarterback, I haven't seen him this year, but he's the kid that got his first career start against Miami and beat him last year, Kenny Pickett. He's probably better. He's probably the 12th or 13th quarterback in the ACC, something in that range. The Duke quarterback's better, Daniel Jones.
So I got one more question, Mike.
Sure.
So what do you think? Miami, should going forward. What do you think will happen going forward as far as hiring a new coordinator or maybe moving on from Mark Richt? Like, do you think it's time to move on from Murray completely, or do you think they go in another direction as far as offensive coordinator? You can go ahead and continue your show and answer on the show, but just answer that question from you real quick, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for the call.
All right, thanks.
All right, we'll continue to take calls at 860-325-3687. So the basic question there was, what would I do with the situation of Mark Richt? Number one, as a play caller. Number two, as a head coach at Miami. So the second of the two is easier for me to answer because I have a clear criteria for what I would expect if I was Miami football. And this is the problem with the phone line situation as we currently have it. I got to take the call, but I will finish up my conversation and my dissertation on Mark Richt here in the next few minutes. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Jay Blade.
Hey, Jay, how are you? Is this the first time you've called in?
All right, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine.
I know. I'm the press conference is on now, and DJ Dallas is talking, but he's talking about execution. But yeah, it was a rough night. Defense was on the field a lot. If you notice that linebackers, he kept the linebackers steady and controlled the edges with the tight ends. He ran a lot of tight end sets where Manny Diaz is known to send pressure from the edges, and he controlled the edges, and he did a lot of misdirection plays where it was hard for the linebackers to shoot their gaps or flow downhill to make a tackle on that big back. But it's rough right now. As far as Mark Richt, it seems like he's doing the same thing he did in Georgia. And the fans, we all not happy. So a new OC is definitely needed. I can see by him investing into the University of Miami. I can see Mark Richt moving to administration position. I'm sure Mr. Blake, they had already talked about that, and I'm sure his son is going to be moved out of that position because you definitely need a quarterback coach with a little bit more experience, along with that new OC that's going to come in, and maybe that new OC might be a new head coach. So at this point, I know the alumni is definitely not pleased. A lot of people is not pleased with what's going on because you should be building off a 10-2 winning season last year, and it seemed like you're going backwards. So, the players are saying execution. They're not clicking right now. So it's a lot to take. It's a hard loss. So I don't know, Mark. It just seems like this season is a little rough. The Coastal, maybe 4 straight wins after this game. Maybe you can get back to the ACC championship if you win. But it's a young team. A lot of people have to make some changes, make some adjustments. I thought after that bye that we was going to come out and do something, but that was more of embarrassing against Virginia. So, it's been rough. It's been rough.
I have no idea who's going to win this division now. I really don't. Going into the season, I pretty much thought what everybody else did, that Miami would win the division. And if they didn't, it was going to be because they were going to lose in Blacksburg to Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech was going to win a tiebreaker. And then very few other teams at all had a chance in this. But it is a free-for-all right now. It's wide open.
Yeah, it is. It's going to come down to the last couple of games, I think.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to come down. There's no question about that.
Yeah. But, Clemson has their division locked up. It's all about the Coastal. Like you said, we don't know who's going to capture that at this point. I mean,
to be fair, yes, Clemson is by far the best team over there. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But technically speaking, they do have a game head-to-head, of course, with Florida State, but Florida State's already lost multiple games. But do you know who has the best chance of knocking off Clemson is the team that we just watched tonight. Boston College has only lost one game in the ACC. They still have yet to play Clemson. If they can somehow beat Clemson head-to-head, that would be their entry into the ACC championship game. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's possible. It's on the table. I don't either. I'm not saying I see it happening. I'm just saying it's on the table.
They're one-dimensional. They're one-dimensional. Boston College. Their run game. It's not really a passing game with them. They're one-dimensional, and I don't see that happening.
Keep in mind, Jay, that during this Clemson run of dominance in the ACC, we've seen them lose to Pitt, who was an 8-5 team that year, Syracuse, who was a 5-7 team, and this year come within that close to losing to Syracuse again.
You're right, but if you look,
it's possible. That's all I'm saying.
Remaining in their schedule is tough. They're going into the hard part of their schedule now.
We're talking about BC. Yeah, they have to play Florida State, Virginia Tech, and I think the last game's against Syracuse. But, and, of course, Clemson. I'm not saying it's happening. I picked Clemson to go 11-1 and win the ACC as well. But I'm just saying that they have a possibility. They have it right in front of them to accomplish. They don't need any help, is what I'm saying. North Carolina State needs help. They lost to Clemson head-to-head, so they need help. They need Clemson to lose 2 games. BC just needs to beat Clemson.
Clemson is strong right now, just like Alabama. And I just don't see. It's very hard. But like you said, this is college football, and anything can happen. So stay tuned. That's what I can say.
We might see Virginia in the ACC championship game. Yes.
Again, with Mark Richt, I want to mention something about Mark Richt, and he seems like he's a bit stubborn. Mark Richt is stubborn, and he's set in his way, and he's sticking with Malik. And I think his downfall is sticking with Malik. You know, at some point, you know, you have to move on. He has 3 good quarterbacks. He said, you know, the beginning of the season, and the most experienced, he said, was Malik, but in tight situations. But Malik has made several mistakes, and they have to play the young guys. I mean, Nkosi, he should have been playing Nkosi. He should have stuck with Nkosi after making that quarterback change and letting Nkosi grow.
I only have one question. I've got one question because I've made this comment a number of times since spring practice, but I just want to verify this. When did Mark Richt confirm that Malik Rocher would be the starter this year? Wasn't it like really early in spring practice? That's when I thought he made that decision. And that's what I didn't understand.
He juggled it. He really didn't make a firm response until right before the first game of the season in that press conference. That's when he did. He juggled it because a lot of people before the season started was pushing for Nkosi to play. So he didn't really want to jump out there and say, I'm gonna start Nkosi. So it was it basically had a quarterback controversy, but he tried to downplay it, and he stuck with Malik. But right now, like I said, he's stubborn and he's sticking with Malik, and I think that's his downfall. And he was just like that with Georgia. He gets into this slump of play calling. He's trying to manage the game on the sideline, you know, and call plays, and it's just not working. You know, it's just not working. So, again, this is one of the reasons why Georgia let him go. And he's doing the same thing with Miami.
So I've got two.
I got him.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say there's two people commenting in the live chat. One is suggesting Lane Kiffin as head coach, and one suggesting Lane Kiffin as offensive coordinator. So here's a good question. Don't leave it in the live chat because I want permanent record of this. once this video posts, whether it's to this video, any of the videos, I will keep tabs. So everybody listen to me right now. Just go to any video at some point, not this particular live chat, because it's going to be lost in the live chat. Go to any of the videos and list who you would like to see be either or Miami's next offensive coordinator and or Miami's next head coach. And I'm going to keep a tally for about a week. And then I'm going to come back with the results. Miami's next offensive coordinator, Miami's next head coach. I would like to see the results of that.
That's true. That's true. Hey, that's the big question. Who's going to the next person? I'm sure right now the search is on. Now, you know, one of the reasons why they brought Mark Rick in is because of the image of the whole program.
Sure.
You know, for his the way he carried himself. A lot of people call him a pastor and things like that. So the image was a big reason why they Blake James hired him. You know, but that image, he still, like I said, he still maybe move and stick with the team and move to an administrative position. And that next OC that comes in might be the head coach, or he might still just have a defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator. But whatever happens, it's definitely a change coming. You can guarantee that at the University of Miami. Definitely a change.
All right, sir. We appreciate the call.
All right.
You have yourself a great weekend.
You, Mark. I caught if you on Facebook. I caught you with that throwing up to you. I know you mentioned it several times. I know you're my Ohio State fan. So,
who?
It was good to see you throw up to you.
Yeah, somebody caught me in a weak moment. I think that's what that was.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man.
All right, take care.
Thanks for the call. We've got another call coming in here. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We appreciate all you guys in the live chat and calling into 860-325-3687. All right, got the call coming in. Who is on the line? Okay, whoever's on the line, what you need to do is you need to turn down the volume on your phone or laptop because it's about 10 seconds behind, and just listen to me on the phone call. Hello?
Yo.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, man, I watched it, man. I was just watching all these comments and stuff, man. Everybody saying Mark Leach. And
okay, hang on just a second. I want to know who I'm talking to.
Oh, it's Kevin. I'm from North Carolina.
Kevin, very good. I appreciate you calling. Is this your first time calling?
Yeah, it's my first time.
Okay, appreciate that. Just make sure you get the volume turned down in the background because the timing's not in sync and it creates a reverb. So go right ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I was just calling in, man. I understand a lot of people are upset with the offense. If you ask me, we actually look pretty good tonight.
What was pretty good?
We actually, like, as a team together, we look pretty good as far as coming down to the stretch, kind of fell apart.
Okay, Miami looked good tonight, except down the stretch they fell apart?
Yeah, they fell apart because it was almost like Rick was rushing, you know, and they couldn't keep all the pieces together. And I see a lot of people in the comments saying how we need a new offensive coordinator, how we need this and that. It's not that. He got to coach these kids up on how to be tough and how to really get through.
Well, I think there's two ways to do that. If you're questioning the toughness of the team, I would need to know a little bit more specifically what you're pointing to. There's something you got to be seeing that I'm not necessarily seeing or anyone else. But you recruit tough kids, first of all, and you can also toughen up kids. But basically, you spot that in individuals. You don't necessarily teach people to be tough. The kids I think you bring into the program have to be tough for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, all the kids coming into the program itself, it's how you got to find that extra grit. all right, you know the coach not calling the plays you want to call. Take it into your own hands. But that's Mark Richt's program. A lot of kids not going to take it into their own hands in Mark Richt's program. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know, Kevin. It sounds like you want the team to be tougher, but you thought they looked pretty good tonight until they came unraveled late.
Yeah, and that's part of the coaching. You got to keep these kids tough all the way through.
Let's also understand that Boston College took the lead on the first drive of the game, and they never trailed in the game. So Miami was behind because Boston College came out, threw up a 3-and-out on defense, and then scored on 3 consecutive drives and led 17-7. And then they were the game was in doubt. The game could have been won, but Boston College was in control. They never were seriously threatened. They came out strong offensively and executed their scheme to a T the first 3 drives, and then their offense didn't do a whole lot after that. They weren't forced to do much. They scored on short fields when the Miami offense turned it over, and they got those 2 interceptions. But basically, the BC offense didn't drive the length of the field after the first 3 drives. They got all their meaningful yardage the first 3 drives of the game, going 75 to 80 yards down the field. After that, they just played conservatively because they didn't have to do anything.
If I'm not mistaken, they drove the first drive coming out of the second half. The first 2 drives coming out of the second half, they drove the field. What I'm saying is, as far as the kids getting tough, all right, so you know the defense going to do what they do. They had a bad game today. The defense had a bad game. I don't care if you're a real Miami fan, the defense had a bad game today. They gave up 400-plus yards. They don't give up 400-plus yards. Everybody knows that. So if you see a defense coming up, giving up a 50-plus yard drive on the first play of the first drive of the half, your offense should be like, all right, we got you. Come back. They're not tough enough like that. They're not big to the point where our defense ain't holding us up. Our defense is built like that. Our offense ain't holding us up, so the defense knows to step up. Our offense not built like, oh, the defense ain't doing their job, so we need to step up our job. And that comes from coaching and so forth and so on. But it's like these kids don't know the tradition of it. When we was dominant back in the early 90s, late 2000s, our offensive line and that defensive line were the first 2 things that came to fruition.
Absolutely. So you need to continue to recruit along the offensive line. The offensive line is substandard, and you have not been playing the right quarterback. That's basically the problem, along with the play calling. The defense did not have a good night, but it's a good defense. It's a good defense. It's a really good defense. It's like a top 15 defense, but they didn't play great tonight. They didn't have a good – Boston College really schemed well in the first 3 drives of the game, and Miami played pretty well defensively the rest of the night.
But that's where your offensive coordinator comes in. You know, your offensive coordinator is like, all right, slow it down. Let's get it back in rhythm. We don't have that.
Agreed.
That's what we need.
All right, Kevin. Thanks so much for the call.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it, man. You have a good night. We'll talk to you soon. All right. So there it is. Miami's 5-3. They've lost 2 games in the ACC. Clemson, of course, controls the other division, but I was just pointing out to the previous caller that mathematically Boston College is in the best position of anyone to win the division aside from Clemson. That's all I'm talking about in terms of the schedule and the wins and losses right now. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Rail. How you doing, Mark?
Hey, I'm doing great. How's it going?
Oh, it's not a good night. Not a good night at
all.
Well, I don't even know where to start with this game. I'm kind of numb to it now. I heard the last caller, had no idea what he was talking about. But what I see with this team, oh man, the offense starting with Mark Richt on down, we need to change. I know that you've been talking to other Canes bloggers and everything. It's getting to the point where, like, I'm lost for words. I pretty much been it last week to Alonzo, but this is getting to the point of Al Golden-esque type of feel with the program. People are talking about flying banners again, and it's Mark Richt got to do something. He needs to give a play calling, let go of his son, and actually get a real staff in there that can get these players together. Because Purdue doesn't have more talent than us, and Purdue put up what I think it was 40-something points on this team, or 30-something points on this team.
30. Purdue beat them by Purdue beat them by 17 points.
It was inexcusable for us to come out here and lay an egg like that. And Manny Diaz and the defense, they didn't look good the first 3 drives, and they kind of held it down, and then the turnover, and interceptions, and we already know after that.
So what would you do with this if you had all the power in the athletic department? What would you do in this situation? Because it seems like people are either wanting a new head coach or to force Mark Richt to hire a new quarterback coach, a new offensive coordinator to replace himself.
Mark Richt, I don't see how Georgia fans could put up with 15 years of this point blank period. I don't get it. But what I would do personally, I'll make Mark Richt. He will be the figurehead. He'll be like the Bobby Bowden, Joe Paterno. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And actually get some young, innovative play callers in there to actually do something with this team.
Okay, so you'd have to have a conversation with Mark Richt to say, you are no longer going to be our head coach unless you agree to the way we're going to go forward with this. You look good at the news conferences. You handle the speeches. You deal with the players in regards to, organizing the practices, being the figurehead. Of course, a little bit more than that. The guy can run a football program. Let's not get too crazy about what Mark Richt can't do, because
that's all he needs to do. Just that
he can lead a football program, a successful football program. He's proven that.
But he hasn't. But the thing that he hasn't proven is winning the big games. You know, you're in the SEC East.
Depends what you consider a big game.
That time. Go ahead. So I'll say that again.
It depends. What do you consider a big game?
Oh, okay. A big game was Notre Dame last year. We won that game, right?
Okay.
A big game is Clemson last year. A big game is also Pitt, because Pitt would have actually probably sealed our fate, was actually having some momentum and possibly getting a playoff look if we would have played Clemson close last year.
Okay, let me cut in. Let me just cut in to make a point, because yeah, you're entirely right. But when you are expected to win, then any game you lose becomes a big game. We saw it last Saturday night. Is Ohio State Purdue a big game for Ohio State? No, Purdue's not a big game for Ohio State. But once they lose that game, it was a big game. So Pitt is not a big game for Miami, but once you lose that game, it's a big game. So I just want to clarify that. I would say, looking at the performance last year, they annihilated a very good Notre Dame team, 41-8 at home. That was a butt kicking beyond belief. And if you look at what Notre Dame did last season, they were a legitimate top 10 team. So that was an outstanding performance. The Virginia Tech game was almost as bad of a butt kicking. Basically just a game that they dominated, they controlled, they didn't blow them out. It was still within doubt, but yeah, they controlled the game. They were the much better team, and that was their main nemesis in the Coastal Division. So I would consider those to be two big games. Now down the stretch, of course, the ACC championship game's a big game, and let's go back. Let's rewind. Of course, Florida State's always a big game, and even though Florida State was down, still very capable. They won that game as well. So I'd say they won 3 big games last year. They, of course, lost the 2 big games at the end, and I won't even consider Pitt. Pitt's a game you don't want to see. If you're a power, you don't slip up against Pitt. Point well taken.
But if you're Mark Richt, You probably do, but continue. I'm sorry.
Well, you could say Urban Meyer's done that the last 2 years too, and he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. He's winning 90-some% of his games. But anyway, so Dabo Swinney lost to Pitt and Syracuse, but he rallied to win national championships. So the other two, what I would consider big games, is anytime you get to a bowl game, especially a major bowl game, that's a big game. So losing to Wisconsin, that's a big loss. And of course, no one expected, very few expected them to beat Clemson, but for them to just completely not show up and for that to be like 21-0 before you could blink, that's an embarrassment. If they would have lost that game like 31-20, been within 1 and 2 scores most of the game and really put up a fight, maybe not down to the wire, but showed up and played well. That's what I expected, them to stay within 10 or 12 points and put up a good competitive game, but they got annihilated. So yes, the showing down the stretch was awful. True.
But in like this game tonight, you saw the difference between the two teams. I mean, I bet you Boston College probably has 3 and 2 star recruits
generally.
But their scheme, but their scheme and their offensive system actually predicated to their players' strengths. Like our team, we don't get our athletes in space. Basically, all the opposing team has to do is baseline their sets and just play it straight up. Everything is vanilla. I'm tired of seeing it. You know, we have a fullback for no reason. We have 2 young tight ends that can actually play, but we really don't use them too much. Like it's getting to the point of it's like incompetence on Rick's end to be more creative and get some mismatches going. Jeff Thomas is elite. He should always be lined up somewhere to make a play. You know, he's always on the out. He's a small guy, but they play him as a boundary receiver all the time. Move him around, get him in motion, get him in space, do something. And it's getting to the point where it's just you watch the first drive and you already know where the rest of the game is going to go. You know, there's no hope. It's just like, okay, here we go again. Hopefully the defense can bail us out with some turnovers. So that was my take on pretty much this whole season.
Yeah, the Virginia game was embarrassing as well. Obviously, Virginia is not anywhere close to the caliber of Miami. We had a particular segment, I believe, last week where we lined up the recruiting classes for Virginia that are currently on the roster versus Miami, and there was no comparison. Miami's got like top 8 to 15 classes, number 8 to 15, something in that range on the roster, and Virginia's anywhere from like 45 to 70. And a quarterback that can't throw the ball. They have no threat of a passing game, and they were able to obviously win the game, and Miami only scored 13 points. So Mark Richt is looking at the situation where against a marginal defense in Virginia and a good defense in Boston College, but not a great defense, they can't move the ball, and they only score, 27 points in 2 games.
Disgusting. That's just disgusting.
Yeah.
Well, I can hold you up all night, Mark. I know other people want to call in and put their word in because I know the rest of the fans are getting too upset. But it's nice talking to you.
Absolutely.
Subscribers and you in the hundreds of So yeah, keep it up, man. You're the truth.
I appreciate that so much. Thanks so much for calling.
No problem, man. Have a good night.
You too.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline.
All right. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line? Oh, I think they hung up on me. Oh, here they come. Got the call coming back. And yes, for anybody who's asking, I know it's been mentioned on the live chat, I was painting today. I was painting right before the game started at 7. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. This is Matt.
Hey, Matt. How are you?
Not too bad. Well, all things considered anyway. Hey, first of all, your show's great. I watch it whenever you talk about my Hurricane.
Thank you.
Here's my question. We saw this with Al Golden. The defense was clearly an issue. And now, clearly, special teams, offense especially,
a major issue. At what point does Miami, Blake James, stop allowing this to happen? You cannot let your head coach drive your university into the ground to the point where you have to start all over again. You have to man up and get good coordinators and take it out of their hands. It's like if you own the Titanic and you knew the icebergs were coming, but you just say, well, Mark Richt is our captain. We got to let him do it his way. That's bogus. That's a multi-million-dollar mistake.
So the criticism of the offensive coordinator, that being Mark Richt, is obvious. So you're having issues with Manny Diaz as well?
No. Blake James. I'm saying
Okay.
you cannot allow him
Sure.
to go into another season with him. But what I'm saying is this. We did it with Al Golden. We allowed Al Golden to keep Mark D'Onofrio around for an extra year. They got him fired. And then Miami had to reboot the whole thing. That's what I'm saying. And so Blake James has a history of saying, well, we got to let the coaches coach. I think that's a terrible mistake. You have to bring in someone that can coordinate an offense, and you have to force a new offensive coordinator on Mark Richt.
That seems to be the consensus. All of you guys seem to be in the same boat, that you're okay with Mark Richt remaining the head coach, but that he has to be forced to make changes on the offense.
So here's my thing. If Mark Richt has a however many $1 million buyout, let's just put it in the neighborhood of $15 million. I have no idea what it is.
Yep.
It's something big, right? He just got an extension. Okay. Even if you went out and you spent $3 million on an offensive coordinator, okay, you're still going to end up saving your money if you can fix that show. I don't care if they fire Mark Richt tomorrow after this. I really don't. But I'm just saying you cannot let him destroy this program because he wants to call plays and have his son be the quarterback coach when he's clearly not qualified. And I just don't see enough people talking about that, period. Like, where, at what point is Miami responsible for this? They're letting these coaches, this is the thing I say on, like, pretty much every message board. Stop giving people enough rope to hang themselves, because what they end up doing is hanging out the whole program. That's not acceptable. Why would you reboot every 4 or 5 years? That's just a silly strategy.
Okay, I don't think we have evidence that that's not in their thought process right now, because what they did was evaluate a 10-3 season at the end of last year, and even though it ended horribly, it was a step in the right direction. It was a division championship. It was a major bowl game. It was another win versus the 9 the previous year, and the recruiting class was great. Therefore, they came into this season with whatever their evaluation of what needed to be accomplished this year, and the season's not over. And it's not been, I know that it looks like a disaster, and by some measurements it is a disaster, but they're not going to fire him. If they had 2 wins right now, maybe, but they're not going to fire him mid-season. So we don't know that they're not having the same evaluation and letting this go. We're not going to know that until mid-December or after a bowl game.
I don't know how long you obviously follow a lot of college football. I don't know how long you followed Miami football for, but I would contend that there is evidence that Miami does it that way. If you look at Randy Shannon and even Larry Coker, they handled it in a similar way. Let the coaches coach until it's just not solvable anymore. And then Randy Shannon came in. They never gave him enough money for all of the coaches that he needed. And then Al Golden came in, and yes, there were sanctions and everything else. But let's be honest. other than like a supposed threat of real sanctions, it was nothing like, USC got or anybody like that. But when Mark D'Onofrio's defense was clearly just bad and holding the team back, they still let him come back for another year until Clemson absolutely hammered us. Then they fired him. It was already too late. And so Miami does have a history of letting these things play out longer than they should, when they should kind of be like, look, hey, telling Mark Richt, it's over. We need to bring in an offensive coordinator. And to be honest with you, I really don't think that they should wait to the end of the season. I think that they should bring in someone like Jed Fish, who doesn't have a real position with the Rams. He's an offensive assistant. He's not their offensive coordinator or quarterback coach or anything like that. They should come in and say, this is your guy for the rest of the year. And pay him. Pay the man. And fire his son and write new rules that prevent nepotism, because that's just silly. But I would contend that there is evidence that Miami constantly lets head coaches do this. Constantly.
Okay, that's a strong.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a strong statement and a well organized plan and statement. I'm just trying to weigh the benefits of bringing somebody in at this point. So what are you trying to salvage at this point? What's going to be the difference for you between doing it right this second versus the end of the season?
Okay, so a lot of people will say it's Mark Richt's play calling, right?
Sure.
But I would say it's not a matter of what you're calling up. It's just concepts. They're very dated. These defenses, first of all, they're very dated. He doesn't use any motion. And so what ends up happening, and of course we don't snap it until like 6 on the clock. The defense is getting all that time to figure out what's going on. They know which one of his, let's say, 8 plays that he calls, and they key in on it, and they absolutely blow it up. So we need someone who has good concepts, spread offense. Someone like Kendall Briles, right? Which I don't know. There's a lot of, bad stuff around Kendall Briles, what happened at Auburn, but he has good concepts. Jed Fish, he's been around people with good concepts. He came from Pete Carroll up at Seattle. He's worked with Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, and now he's with Sean McVay out with the Rams. He knows football. You look at what he did with Stephen Morris. Stephen Morris is not a Miami quality quarterback, let's be real. He's not a top 5 quarterback, but he made him look very good. Ja'Cory Harris had real turnover trouble, and in Jed Fish's first year, he only had 5 interceptions to 20 touchdowns. If we had a quarterback right now with only 5 interceptions and 20 touchdowns for the year, where would Miami be ranked?
You might have lost to LSU, but that would be the only one, maybe.
Exactly. And I think most rational fans could have accepted a loss to LSU and been totally fine, just plugging along. We're seeing our progress. But that's not the case. We're absolutely horrible on offense. Horrible. So that's why I say I wouldn't blink at calling Jed Fish right now and saying, how much is it going to cost to get you to Coral Gables this week, and start preparing for the next game? Because, you just start putting in 10 plays a week if you can, and just start the new concept, see where it can go. But they've got to throw money at this. They've got to throw money at this right now, or they're going to be throwing a lot more money at it later.
All right, man. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. Anything else you got for us?
All right. No, that's it.
Well, you trying to have a great weekend anyway.
You take care. I'm going to keep on watching and see what you have to say about Saturday and what's going on. And if you see any
offensive coordinators out there for us at Miami, let us know.
Well, I don't know if you heard my comment a few minutes ago, but it made me think. I'm asking for people to leave their comments, not in the chat here, but in any of the videos, leaving who they would like to see as the next offensive coordinator and or head coach.
I did see that because you said one person said Kiffin for OC and the other one said Kiffin for HC. I was the one that said Kiffin HC, but for head coach. But what I was trying to say was Kiffin will not come here as an offensive coordinator. You're not going to be able to make Lane Kiffin Mark Richt's offensive coordinator. Plus, he has a job right now, you know. And I'm more like, dude, we need something for this season if we're going to salvage it. You know, I could see Mark Richt losing his job and Lane Kiffin being hired, you know, as head coach. But I could not see him being an offensive coordinator under Mark Richt under any circumstances. Not at all.
Yeah, I don't think.
Unless they like.
No, that's not going to happen. Exactly.
I have no idea how that would work.
All right, man. Thanks so much for the call. We appreciate the insight. Good stuff there.
Hey, thanks for taking it.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk later. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. It's been really good night for phone calls. I know not a good night for most of you. Maybe there's somebody out there that likes Boston College. I picked Boston College 24-23, and I've been testing out my predictions this year for the first time in like 4 or 5 years, putting a little bit of money behind those predictions. So taking BC not just against the spread, but also straight up. And you could imagine, if you know anything about that sort of thing, that it paid off pretty well. I did want to see this UCLA-Utah game, but as long as we've got 90 people on the chat, we're down to 80 now. And you guys have things to say. You know what the deal is here. We talk college football every day, 24/7, 365. So we're available if you want to continue to talk and keep the live chat open, talking Miami football with the Canes going down to Boston College. Of course, Miami has an enormous fan base compared to Boston College. I realize that, but even more so on my channel. Who knows what the ratio is, 150 to 1 or maybe more than that. So we focus on Miami. I'm a college football guy, analyst who loves to talk about everyone. So I try to balance it out. But of course, I'm going to serve you, the viewer. And you guys do a great job of supplying the live chat as well. Which, of course, Navy Thomas, I don't see him on tonight, but he has called it the best live chat room in college football. So it needs to be named something. I want to let all of you guys know we were up to close to about 100 people watching at one time. And so I just want to let you guys know that we're here talking college football all the time. So if you love Miami, lock in on us and you'll get your Miami talk. But if you love Miami, plus you want to hear about the rest of the ACC or maybe the rest of college football, sure, check out other channels, go online, go to other places. We understand we're not the only place, we're not the only stop, but we think we do it just about as well as anybody else online for the best discussion, debate, and analysis in college football for myself, and also bring on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. So we talk college football all the time. Would love to see the subscriber list increase, so please subscribe, like, and comment. And what I'm asking you to comment to right now would be, who should be Miami's next offensive coordinator and or head coach? Don't leave that comment, that response in the live chat, because I'll miss it and it'll be wiped away. You need to leave that comment to any of the videos. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, this is Rich Coombs. How you doing, man? I'm from Connecticut, man.
Hey, I'm doing just fine. What's going on?
Just coming back from the game. It was miserable.
Oh, coming back from the game and coming back to Connecticut. Yeah. So before I let you roll with your comment, I just want to make sure I didn't hear your handle right out of the gate. I didn't hear your name.
Oh, Rich.
Rich. Okay, Rich.
Yeah.
How long have you been watching? I'm just curious.
What, Miami football game?
No. How long you been watching me?
I've been on since after the game. I was listening to you as I was walking from the stadium.
Okay. I'm just talking about overall. But we'll.
I've been watching you for a while now, long time.
Okay, I was just curious. So you were at the game. You were braving a bit of a chill up there. What, about 40 degrees?
Yeah, it was definitely cold out there. It looked like we were getting to the kids, getting out to the players and stuff. I don't think they're used to playing in this type of weather.
Of course they're not. So the only games that Miami plays anything close to this, they showed a graphic during the game that the last time Miami played in this cold of weather was a game at Pitt in 2013. Game time was 33 degrees. They did win the game 41-31, but that was 5 years ago at 33 degrees. Game time tonight was 39. So the only games that Miami's going to play like that would be a late October, November game at Pitt or Boston College. That's pretty much it in the ACC. Maybe at Blacksburg, possibly in November, possibly at night. But those are about the only places they're going to run into that kind of weather, unless there's just some kind of freak cold front. So where'd you sit for the game?
At first I was up on visitor side, but I was up in the stands. But then as the game went on, you sneak down, and I was
sure.
like right on the field, like basically right there. And just all the kids were just, you could just tell they were cold, out of it. It's just the play calling is just horrendous, man. I just we need the offensive coordinator bad, really bad. It's just Malik he's not taking us anywhere. He just can't. He doesn't even have the ability to take us anywhere. It's just horrible. Just seeing it in person is just horrible.
Yeah, and that's been my analysis ever since the decision was made to keep him at quarterback. So my recollection of this whole situation was, we know how poorly he played down the stretch. He hit like 43% of his passes with more interceptions than TDs in the 3 games that they lost down the stretch, and he looked awful. I could have bought the reasoning that had Malik won the job in August, let's say, and Mark Richt would have said, after evaluating the quarterbacks during the spring and summer individual workouts and a couple weeks into August, Malik has really improved and he is maintaining his spot as the starting quarterback. I wouldn't have agreed with it, but I could have bought that. But there is no way that Malik Rozier, and it's still difficult for me not to say Rozier, but anyway, Malik Rozier, to have improved from the time he stepped off the field against Wisconsin at the Orange Bowl until the time he started spring practice. So we know he's a junior going into his senior year. He hadn't played any more football. How did he get so much better to have reclaimed his job when it should have been up for grabs? Now, N'Kosi Perry, obviously there is something there that Mark Richt doesn't like. Our first caller tonight said that he changes plays and makes calls at the line that Mark Richt doesn't want. He audibles and Mark Richt doesn't like it. I don't know the truth to that. That's the first time I've heard that.
Right. Yeah, well, that's the first time I'm hearing it too, but I just feel like we know what we got in Malik already, and it's just our offensive style. It's give the kid the benefit of the doubt. He came back against a tough Florida State team, and it's just there was no reason to pull him. Last week. There was just week before. There was no reason to pull him. But we didn't come in and do any better. It's just I'd rather lose him to Posey, and he has game experience. At least he knows what it is to go in someone's backyard, have the crowd against him, and sweat and work through it. We know we have him. He can't hit the side of a ball. He just can't. He just can't. I'm just tired. I'm tired of losing like this. I like Mark Richt as a coach. I just don't like him having his son as a quarterback coach. Someone else needs to call plays. Probably up in the booth somewhere. He's trying to call plays from the sideline. He doesn't get the whole grand scheme of the game. It's like, how do you see it? How do you see the game from the sideline? It's bad.
Yeah, that's a point that hasn't been brought up tonight, but it's a good one in that the offensive coordinator typically has a view of the field from the press box in which he can see what's going on up top and see the movement of the players on the field. Coaches will say all the time, coaches that don't call the plays will say all the time in the news conference when asked about certain things, well, I got to see the game tape because they just see guys running back and forth. It's very difficult to see what's going on. I've had jobs where I stood on the sideline at, in particular, SEC games every week. And then I would have a spot in the press booth as well. And it's exciting to be on the field. You like that vibe, that energy, but you see what's going on. You see plays develop in the press box because for obvious reasons, you can see the entire field. Rich, we appreciate the phone call.
Can I just make one more comment real quick?
You can. The only reason I'm cutting you short is because it's difficult to hear you, but go right ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just hate what it does for our recruiting. When we played Florida State, we had the number one receiver that decommitted from Georgia come to our game and watch that great game. You think he wants to come play for an offense that is just sputtering out? He's not going to want to come to Miami. And it goes with all the other recruits. They're not going to want to come to Miami. We can't even get going. It's just tough. But thank you. Thank you for taking my call.
Hey, Rich, no problem. You have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later.
All right, thank you.
Rich coming back from the game. BC wins at 27-14. They're 6-2. Miami falls to 5-3. They've got 2 losses in the Coastal Division. They can still win the conference. They can still win the division, but it's going to be extremely difficult. It's out of their control now. They need help. Virginia, the most likely situation is that Virginia loses again. They're not that good, but Virginia, technically speaking, logistically speaking, they do control the division. They only have 1 loss. And you could say the same thing for Pitt. They only have 1 loss. You could say the same thing for Virginia Tech. They only have 1 loss. So you got 3 teams with 1 loss. They all still play each other. That's why they all have just the 1 loss. Virginia Tech lost a big game against Georgia Tech last night. If they could have won that game, they'd really be sitting pretty. But they're still in good shape with the 1 loss. Virginia Tech still plays Pitt. Pitt still plays Virginia. Virginia still plays Virginia Tech the last game of the season. But those 3 teams have a leg up on Miami, and Virginia has 2 legs up on Miami because they've only lost 1 game. Miami's lost 2, and Virginia, of course, won the game head-to-head. All right. Despite all the people online, you guys know I'm a nut concerning college football. I still have to make my predictions for tomorrow, and I'm off to a great start, so I'm feeling good about what I predicted tonight, unfortunately, to your demise. But with the other games as well. There was an exciting finish, apparently, with Minnesota, Indiana. Minnesota was up in this game 31-9. I saw 31 all, and then Minnesota scored late to hold off Indiana. So they blew a 31-9 lead in the 4th quarter. PJ Fleck does get his first win in the Big Ten, and I know many of you don't care. Most of you don't care. I do. College football junkie. I try to keep track of everything, and I would like to see UCLA and Utah. We may actually do a wrap-up of the UCLA-Utah game, which, surprisingly enough, is a huge game. If UCLA defeats Utah tonight, they will take first place. After going 0-5 to start the season, UCLA will be in first place in the Pac-12, believe it or not. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's George, Mark.
Hey, George. I know you've been trying to call, but a lot of people have been on the line, so that's a good thing.
What a raucous day of football.
Raucous. Yeah, so Miami goes down, and I just mentioned that Minnesota and Indiana played a wild game, and UCLA is playing Utah right now. I would like to see about the second half of that game. What's on your mind?
Oh, my God. Hey, well, we can keep this short then. I'm going to go watch UCLA, too. There's nothing on my mind. I feel sorry for Miami. I apologize for them to the rest of the world. But you know what? Everybody's missing something. Boston College rocks. I love those people.
They've got a good football program there. Steve Adazio took over. He had a bit of a rough start. They've gone 7-6 every year that he's been there, excluding 1 year. They had a downer at 3-9. It's difficult to recruit there. They have high academic standards. They're in the Northeast. He does not get the talent that most of the other schools in the ACC gets, but he knows his system and he recruits to his system, and he loads up that roster with very talented players at certain positions, offensive and defensive line, linebacker, and he makes do with the rest of the positions. And we see that he plucked maybe the best running back in the nation out from under the big programs.
Yeah.
And he's put together a nice little program. They're not going to be ranked in the top 10. They're not going to compete for championships, but they're going to make it difficult for teams like Miami to win division championships.
Hey, in the upcoming years recruiting, he can cherry pick Miami's recruits. Miami's going to lose all their recruits. Nobody's going to put up with this. You think they want to go play for Richt?
I can certainly see the point, but I don't think so.
Yeah,
so
Miami's
here,
in trouble. They better fire Richt today and hire a new coach, or they're done. Nobody's going to go play there.
Okay, people will play there, George. Here's the situation Miami's in.
Yeah, 3 stars and 4 stars. Not
No. So if you did the numbers, if you ran the numbers of 4- and 5-star recruits that are in the vicinity, like a 50-mile radius of Miami, they only have to get a small percentage of them to still rank in the top 10 or 15 teams in the country in recruiting rankings. So it's not going to fall apart. They're going to lose recruits based on what we're seeing. Yes.
I think it will fall apart. I think they'll go to UCLA in Oregon. It's a new day and age. No, this is too disgusting for Miami to be doing what they're doing after being ranked number 2 last year at 10-2. You give me a break. If I was a college kid or a high school kid going to college, I mean, I watch football. I'm not going to play for that guy.
Okay, I've got one name for you. Texas. What does Texas have in common with Miami? They're surrounded by recruits and they've got a big name brand. They were awful for 5 or 6 years and they were still recruiting top 15 classes. Even though the place was a mess and Charlie Strong was doing an awful job and they were losing to Kansas, they will still be able to recruit. And Mark Richt.
Listen, the kids in Texas aren't desperate to buy their mom a house and let her retire. The kids in Miami are. They need to go to a school where they'll be utilized. What the fuck is Miami doing, man? What's going on? How can you have that team and not utilize the players? They're a good team. It's not the players' fault.
They have a talented roster. They have a bad quarterback, at least the one that they've selected to play, and their offensive line is garbage. If we took any other capable coach in America, I don't know that they would be that much better. Maybe they would have won one of these 2 most recent games that they lost against Virginia and BC. But Mark Richt was winning games at Georgia. I know that he did not win a national championship, but he won games consistently at Georgia.
Not against Florida.
Okay. Not against Florida.
So you couldn't even win the East in the SEC. Wow. What a guy.
I'm
he won the East
okay.
He won the East
I'm not
a couple times in the SEC.
Yeah,
big deal.
Don't misinterpret.
Jim McElwain did that.
Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm not selling Mark Richt as a legendary coach. I'm just saying that he's not going to coach a program that's going to come off the rails.
Hey, Mark, I know that Miami is your fan base. I know they are the ones that support you more than anybody. My heart is broken for them. And we have to play them the first game of next year. And, of course, I expect to win. I'm a Gator. But I don't like what's happening with Miami.
Well,
I'm on their side. I want them to win, except against us. This is embarrassing to me.
I was optimistic, even though I didn't think and never thought Mark Richt was an elite coach. I was optimistic that he would be able to go there and win big because of the recruiting and because he's back at home and because it was just a good feel, a good vibe. And the recruiting classes started to increase and really rose in the rankings. And he had a good end to his first season. They won a bowl game for the first time in forever. Then they got off to the hot start last year. And despite some of the warning signs in that 10-game winning streak, I still thought that the program was headed in the right direction overall. Now, people are generally suggesting a course correction that doesn't involve taking Mark Richt off the sidelines. It involves the offense, which is a mess. So if Mark Richt can swallow his pride and just be a head coach, he can be a very good head coach, but he is not any longer an offensive coordinator or play caller. So that needs to be given to somebody else.
Right. I heard your caller earlier. He said put him in an administrative position. That'd be even better. Make him like recruiting consultant or something. He can go to people's houses and have dinner with them. Show his tan. Show that tan. Bring his kid with him.
All right, George. You have to be amped for Georgia, Florida. So I'm sure we'll talk sometime after that.
The varsity plays tomorrow. The junior varsity had their fun today, but the varsity plays tomorrow.
Well, thanks so much for the call, George. Enjoy the game, and hopefully we'll talk to you sometime tomorrow night after Georgia, Florida, because that should be a good one.
Can I get your prediction on the Georgia, Florida game?
Oh, because my predictions have been pretty decent this year. So, man, I always box myself into a corner because here it is,
it's all on a case-by-case basis. You have a right to change your mind later. Go ahead. What do you think?
Because I release a video, and those are the ones that go on record. Those are the predictions that go on record. And I really need to work on that because here we are at 12:15 in the morning, and I've now worked on my predictions, and I'm going to watch USC or UCLA and Utah. Okay, this is my thought without really breaking down and making my official prediction. Most likely I'm going to go, I am definitely, I have already been online to lay Florida and take the points, but I know you don't care about the points. Georgia is a slightly more talented team, but Florida is airtight right now. They are playing really solid football. If you just look at the resumes of the two teams, they're really not comparable. Georgia has yet to play and beat a good team. They, of course, fell apart at LSU. Florida's just playing much better football right now, and Felipe Franks has improved markedly. And the thing that concerns me about Georgia, and for the Georgia perspective, is that their passing game has been atrocious in recent weeks, and Jake Fromm just looks like he's regressed. I'm most likely going to pick Florida to pull off an upset and win this game, something in the range of 26-24.
Yeah.
Okay.
That works. That works.
That works for you. Okay.
I'll take 1 point in triple overtime. I'm hoping it's a blowout. Their fans leave at halftime, but I'll take the triple overtime game. Whatever it takes.
All right, George. Thanks so much.
I predict this is the beginning of a Florida dynasty.
Well, you've been predicting that for a long time.
Well, at least 2 years. All right. I know you got to go to bed sometime.
Well, I'm not going to bed. That's out of the question. I've got too much work to do before that.
The Georgia game's coming on in a few hours. Get some rest.
Well, I only need about 2 hours, and then we'll be ready to go.
Fine.
All right, George.
I'll just start calling you Nikolai.
Thanks for the call. And you got to remind the viewers one thing, George.
Right.
What is that?
Like and share the video. Put it on Twitter. Come on.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, George.
Thank you, Mark.
You're the best. I appreciate it.
You too, man. Bye.
That was George. He's incomparable. I believe that George has set the record. I would love to see the count of the most comments to Mark Rogers TV. So we thank George for helping us by liking the videos and commenting to the videos. So if you guys enjoy these videos and enjoy the talk, even if you don't agree with me, I think you guys understand how YouTube works. So please like, comment, and subscribe. and do what I do. There's a ton of creators out there, YouTube creators and content folks out there that I like some of their stuff, but I don't watch them on a regular basis, but I still subscribe, and it doesn't bother me when they release videos. I don't know. I don't have my notifications on. So I want to let everyone know, I see Utah is ahead 17-7. I took UCLA in the 10.5. I would like everyone to know that I still have some personal business that's up in the air, but I would like to do watch parties for both the Clemson-Florida State game at noon Eastern time and the Georgia-Florida game at 3:30 Eastern time. We'll see how it works out, but I will send out the notification to all my subscribers, and we'll have a watch party that will include basically me kicking back, watching the game. You will obviously not be watching the game through Mark Rogers TV. You'll just watch the game and be able to switch to whatever games. I typically watch 3 games at the same time, 2 on laptops, 1 on the big screen. And I'll just kick in with analysis. And somebody had complimented my play calling and my play-by-play skills a couple of weeks ago, and they wanted the watch party to continue. So I'm not going to do that for the entire game. That would just annoy you. You need to listen to Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson and whomever's doing the Florida State Clemson game. Of course, I can't compete with those guys. But I'll give my analysis and my thoughts on the game, but we'll just kind of let it roll and let it go. And we'll talk college football, and I'll be flipping all over the place and watching 3 games at the same time. But the primary focus, Clemson, Florida State, and Georgia, Florida. I do not believe that I'll be doing a kickoff show at 10 a.m. And I know that it's on the banner. My schedule, my live stream schedule that's on my YouTube front page has basically been obliterated by my work schedule that has changed in recent weeks. And so I need to update the banner on my YouTube page. All right. And the kickoff show, I love doing the kickoff show for 2 hours, but it just doesn't seem to be too well received. I know that I should stick with it, but maybe we'll build up during the off season toward the kickoff in week 1 of college football 2019. And then we'll do a kickoff show a la college game day leading into the noon Eastern time kickoff next year. Keep in mind that we're on SG1 Sports at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday to wrap up the entire weekend. But most importantly, Saturday here all day, watch parties. We'll announce what we're going to do when we know what we're going to do. All right. Derek Scherer is on the live chat right now, and we worked at ESPN together. Not for a long time, because then Derek actually moved elsewhere in the company, and I stayed in my department at ESPN, but we worked together for a long time. And Mark, Derek is a big BYU fan. And after I've been on here talking for like 2 hours, I started to get a little delirious. But Derek, you will understand. So this is the first time I've seen Derek on the line. I appreciate you stopping by and checking out the show tonight. All right, folks. Yes, painting the house this afternoon. I did much of that this summer, and I still had some touch-up to do, so we went after it, and I still have more to do. But, you know, first and foremost, we're doing this thing, the voice of college football, Mark Rogers TV. So in future weeks, as soon as I get my thoughts together, I'm going to sit down, and we're going to do a live stream where we're not going to talk about college football. Of course, you guys can do whatever you want to do in the live chat. I can't control what you're talking about, but it's going to be announced that for this particular live stream, we're going to talk about the channel and what the channel should be, what it can be, what my thoughts and visions are, and what you want it to be. We'll talk about the channel, and I want to get my thoughts together before I present that. But we'll do that sometime in the next month to 6 weeks, hopefully. All right. I see all sorts of new names. I appreciate the response to tonight's live stream. Sometimes we have 10 or 15 people on here. Sometimes we push 100 as we did tonight, which is nice because that really means probably 1,000 people came through at some point tonight, and we would love to build these live streams up beyond that. So if you are watching us for the first time, or maybe you stop by from time to time and like the college football content, please let your thoughts and your perspective be known, your suggestions as well for the channel and the content. We, again, will be here live through most of the day tomorrow. Instant analysis of all the big games, 11 a.m. Eastern time on SD1 Sports on Sunday. I'll release, of course, my college football top 25 that actually makes sense sometime on Sunday, and then we'll start the whole process all over again on Sunday as we preview and predict all the games for the next week. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I appreciate you guys jumping on the line. And despite the misery that most of you are feeling, still making your thoughts and feelings known right here on the call-in show. This is another thing that we will get cleared up during the offseason in regards to. This is not the best way, of course, to take phone calls, but we will up the ante and improve the production quality at some point. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We will see you guys tomorrow, or believe it or not, I know it's 12:15 in the morning. We may come back following Utah and UCLA. We will see you soon. One last thing. Remember, Miami fans, leave not in the live chat, but in the comment section of any video who you would hire as offensive coordinator and or head coach at the University of Miami. So leave that in the comment section of any video, not in the live chat, but in the comment section. We'll see you next time.